In this video, I'm going to be discussing using quotes in your CSV data with sports photo automation. There is really only one thing I see people use quotes for, and that is when they're putting player height information into their templates. Now, if you don't use quotes in a very specific way, then the data won't display right. And there's a couple things that can happen. The first is you can get these extra quotes before and after your text. You can also see where you're missing the quotes or where your quotes have these boxes around where the quotes should be. In this video, I'm going to get a slight bit technical, so bear with me, but I feel it's important to explain what's happening. And then once you understand what's happening, you know how to prevent that. It's actually really simple to make sure you get the data displayed correctly when you're creating your CSV files, and what to look for in the case of where you have data importing and exporting between programs to where your data can actually change and cause some of these issues. So I've got a CSV file saved here, and in this last column I've got height information, and for both rows it's 5 foot 10 inches. Now, if you ever want to see what's happening in your data and it doesn't display right and it doesn't look like what you see in the spreadsheet, always open that data in a plain text editor like Notepad on Windows or Text Edit on Mac, and that'll show you what's actually going on in the data, and you'll often see there's hidden characters. And so this is the CSV file, so if you remember from prior videos, the commas between your cells, those are hidden characters that just tell the software programs where to separate the data for each cell. So those are normal, but what we've got is in this last column, you see this is 5 foot 10 inches on the first row, and that matches. But the second one has these extra quotes before and after the 5 foot 10 inches. And you don't see that in the CSV file when you open it in a spreadsheet program. So what is happening is these are different kinds of quotes, and it's really hard to see in a spreadsheet. But the first one has what I call curly quotes. I don't really know what the actual real term is, but they're curled, so I call them curly quotes. And these other ones are straight lines. I call those straight quotes. Again, there's probably a better technical name for those. But what to know is straight quotes are used by computer programs often for data parsing purposes. And these are hidden quotes that the spreadsheet will add these as hidden characters in order to tell the program how to use the data, but it's not part of the data itself. Now, in the case of this first column, where I've got the city, comma, the state, you see it uses straight quotes here when you have a comma in the data, because that tells the computer programs that that comma is part of the data and not a separator. Now, in the case of this height information, there's no commas in the data, but we've got these straight quotes in the data. And since there's a computer parsing straight quote in our data itself, the computer program knows that that's part of the data and not a parsing character, so it's adding, for some reason, I don't even know why, it's adding 3 extra quotes, 1 before and 2 after. And the spreadsheet program knows to ignore these 3, but then use this one right here as part of the data. And so this one's not hidden, where these 3 are hidden. Now, depending on how quotes are used and a combination of curly and straight quotes, it can get kind of messy in these spreadsheets. And I've also found that not all data programs handle how it uses the hidden characters the same. So for that reason, there is really no way for me to program sports photo automation to be able to automatically ignore these hidden quotes. So what sports photo automation does is it simply separates the data by comma. And so what you're left with is this is your data that it's going to put in when it replaces the text. Now I will point out too that it doesn't matter if it's a TSV tab separated file or if it's a CSV. If it's a tab separated file, you'll still see something like this where even though there's no commas, if you have these straight quotes in your data, it's still going to mess up the data. So either way, you're not going to be able just to save as a TSV in this case. Whereas in the previous video I mentioned that if you have commas in your data, you can save as a TSV and then the quotes are not issues. In the case of if you have straight quotes in your data, that still is an issue with TSV. So it's a very simple fix. Well, I say simple, it's simple to understand, but depending on how you're getting your data, you might be getting data with straight quotes when you don't want it. So I'm in LibreOffice here, and what I do know is when you type in on the keyboard characters in LibreOffice, these characters that I'm typing, if I type right in here, I'm getting I'm getting curly quotes and not straight quotes. I think Excel's the same way. I'm not 100% positive. But I know in LibreOffice, if you type in, you'll get curly quotes, and curly quotes are what you need to use. If we look at our PSV file, the curly quotes here, these will import properly. So you have to use curly quotes in your data. But here's where the problem comes in, is that even on online forums that I use, I'm a member of several different forums for software developers, and even in those forums, when you copy and paste computer code data, the quotes will change from one to the other. And I've seen different programs online and forums do that. I've also seen computer programs themselves, when you copy and paste data between one program and the next, where it will change the kind of quote in your text. So even if you're typing in curly quotes somewhere, but that data then transfers from one program to the next, and it goes online and then comes back, it may come back as a straight quote. So you may have started with the curly quote and end up with a straight quote. So that's something important to know. So if you're sending data off to some photo service that sends you a CSV file back, you may be getting back straight quotes in your CSV, which will cause problems even if you didn't have straight quotes to begin with when you typed in your original data. So that can be a problem, and I don't have a real solution for that side of it, because like I say, different programs online I've seen and within a computer system can change the character it uses for those quotes. So that's where it can get a little bit complex, but just know that when you look at your CSV file, it has to have curly quotes, and it might be a little easier to see in Notepad. If you open this in Notepad, this is the tell-all. So open your file in Notepad, and if it looks like what you would want to get when you replace the text, then that's good. If it has these extra quotes, that's bad. So with that in mind, there's another layer of complexity here, and that is with the fonts themselves. And that is because every font seems to have a character for the straight quote. So this is Arial font here. You see we've got straight quotes, and we've got curly quotes as well. This is the Ash font. You see right here, this is the Ash font. Now there actually are curly quotes typed in here, but you don't see them. And this font, the designer just left blank space, I guess, for a nothing for that character. So even if you type something in, you don't see anything because the font designer did not design a curly quote. And so that's a problem, because remember I said you have to use curly quotes, but at the same time, some fonts don't display curly quotes. And then this is an example of the Bebas font. Again, the straight quotes are fine, but the curly quotes in this case, and I've seen this with a lot of different fonts where the curly quotes, they actually draw a box around them. So I think what it is some font designers, they don't design fonts for all the keys or all the characters. And for the ones that they decide to not design a font character for, they just draw boxes around all of those. So you see there's a placeholder but nothing there. So what you need to do is you first need to make sure your data has curly quotes, but then you need to find a font that will display curly quotes. And most of your standard fonts will, that come with your computer. So this is the Ash font here, but if we switch to, let's find Arial font, you see that Arial font, you've got your curly quotes. So that would be one you could use. Birch Standard's got curly quotes. Calibri has curly quotes. Cambria, we've got curly quotes there. And pretty much, like I say, the standard fonts that come with your computer are going to have them, but some of the custom fonts you get online, like for instance the Pepsi font, there is no curly quotes. That's just a blank. Let me see if I can find one with the boxes. I saw one in there somewhere. But anyway, just know that some of them, they'll give you boxes. Here we go, the college font. That's a common one with sports template designers. So if you're trying to do your height information and you want to use college font, you're going to get boxes if your CSV data has curly quotes. Now, so if you, I don't know, if you type in, I think that's supposed to be a straight quote, but it's displaying as a curly quote. But if your data has curly quotes, it displays a blank. If you type it in, you're going to get a curly quote, which may be actually a straight quote. I don't know. Like I say, these quotes, it's a rabbit hole that you go down, and unless you know what to look for, it can get confusing. So let's go back here. Okay, anyway, the initial was saved with curly. As soon as I type in a straight on that, whatever font I was just on college, I got a curly from, I guess, a straight quote. So I think if you just type in, let's go back to the Arial here. Because I'm just curious. I know I'm rambling on and on, but I'm learning something here, I think. No, that types in a curly. I don't know. In any case, I'm going to try to keep this more simple. I've rambled on too much. Make sure your data in your CSV file has curly quotes, and stick with a basic standard font like Arial, or just one of the basic fonts that comes with your PC. And when you use curly quotes, your data will work correctly. So, and for anything else, if you're using any other fonts, you could get in trouble if you're using something weird. And if your data comes in with straight quotes, that will mess things up. So I wish it were not this way, but it's just the way it is. So hopefully you've learned what to do. And if people are still confused, I'm going to make this, I'm going to go over this one more time here in your font. Choose something basic like Arial, and then in your data, make sure your quotes show the curly quotes in your spreadsheet. And then if you open those in the notepad, if you see the curly quotes and you don't have the extras, everything will be good. Anyway, sorry this video went on for so long. I'm trying to explain this the best I can, but it's I understand this might be a little bit confusing for some people, but in any case, if you're going to use quotes, this is just what you're going to have to do. So thanks for watching, and hopefully this helps.